Alright, this is part 3 of developing the unit circle using sine and cosine. We did this on August 15th or August 16th, so if you were absent or just need additional help, that's what this is for. Okay, so on the previous two videos, what we discussed is 45 degrees. So we figured out this point was square root of 2 over 2, comma square root of 2 over 2. And then also, I'm going to draw the triangle that we developed here. We developed this triangle. Okay, so on the previous video for this point here, or 30 degrees, or in radians pi over 6, we discovered that this is 30 degrees. Our hypotenuse is 1 because we're dealing with a unit circle and the radius is always 1. I'm going to erase this. If you go back to video number 2, we also said this is 1/2, and we solved using Pythagorean's theorem. This is square root of 3 over 2. Now, hopefully you actually looked through problem number 2 or video number 2, because I mentioned that this is 60 degrees. 90 plus 30 is 120, so we need another 60 to get to 180. Now that's important. Why? Because now we're looking at pi over 3 or 60 degrees now. And so if you have your big circle, I would recommend having that out while you're going through this. What we have is this angle measure here. This right there is 60 degrees. Let me make that bigger. This is going to be 60 degrees. Alright. And so now, same thing we did in videos 1 and 2. We want to figure out what this point is. Still in the unit circle, so hopefully you've already filled it in, maybe, that this is a radius of 1, our hypotenuse is 1. And in class, I gave students time to figure this out, any method they wanted to. But what we can notice is 60, 90, this is going to be 30, so we have another 30, 60, 90 triangle. Our hypotenuse is 1. That looks really similar to what we have here. It looks really similar to what we have here. Our hypotenuse is 1. We have a 60 degree and a 30 degree angle. Now we just need to look at the sides. So if I look at 60 degrees in the triangle we developed in video number 2, opposite of that 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2. So if we go here, 60 degrees, opposite, we were going to say that's y because it's up and down, vertical, square root of 3 over 2. Horizontal, so this is going to be x, or it's on our x-axis. And by similar logic, 30 degrees, the side opposite of 30 degrees is 1/2. So what we have here, similar to the previous video, is that this point, our x-coordinate is 1/2, and our y-coordinate is square root of 3 over 2. Now, I can just write on this. We want to find sine and cosine of pi over 3. Cosine pi over 3. If we look at the triangle, pi over 3 is 60 degrees. We're still talking about this angle right here. Alright. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite of our 60 degree angle is square root of 3 over 2. Our hypotenuse is 1. Anything divided by 1 is itself. So we get that this is square root of 3 over 2. Can't remember if we talked about this in the last video. We also, I think, discussed that x and y, more than likely our y on the unit circle is going to be our sine value, which means our x value, our x coordinate is our cosine. I'll summarize that in a second. Or in other words, adjacent to this angle is 1/2 over 1. 1/2 over 1 is just 1/2. So we get these. All right. Now I'm going to summarize down here. So now we're going to do the rest of the unit circle. What we noticed is if we have an xy coordinate on our unit circle, cosine is x, cosine of that angle is x, sine of the angle is y. Okay? And what we have so far is, if you go back to the video 1, 2, and what we just did here, we have this point is square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2. This point at 45 degrees of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2, comma square root of 2 over 2. At pi over 3 or at 60 degrees, we have 1/2, comma square root of 3 over 2. Okay. Our radius is still 1. We're still on the unit circle. So our radius is 1, which means here, if I'm here and I go to the right, that length of the radius, my x-coordinate at this point here at 0 or 2 pi or 360 is 1, 0. Up here, we didn't move left or right, but we moved up 1. So this coordinate point is 0, 1. At pi over 2 or 90 degrees. At pi, or 180, we went left 1 but didn't go up or down, so this is negative 1, 0. And then similar here at 3 pi over 2 would be 0, negative 1. Now in class we did this and we wanted to figure out, this is just the first quadrant. So we want to figure out the rest of it. Well, we noticed that 3 tick marks in the first quadrant, so we know 3 points, or tick marks if you will, in each quadrant. Now, I'm going to try and do this quickly just for time's sake so the video doesn't take too long to upload. Notice here, it's circle symmetric, so these points should correlate for the rest of them. Or in other words, if I'm looking at this point here, it should be associated with one of these 3. But if I take this and I flip it over, it turns out this point is associated with that. So I'm actually going to write that point, 1/2, comma square root of 3 over 2. The only thing that's changing is if we're in this quadrant, or quadrant 2, we're moving to the left and up. So we move to the left, our x value is negative. Anytime we move to the left, up, our y is positive. So it's the same point, but our x coordinate is negative, our y coordinate is positive. And we can use that same logic for the rest of them. Now, I'm not going to fill in the rest of it. If you missed this, you can fill it in during class. But try to figure out these next 6 on your own. Think about the x and y values here and which point would associate here. Same thing with this. You can check it when you come to class, either on Thursday or Friday, even Monday. It'll be on the board. There's one more part to talk about sine and cosine of these angles, and that shouldn't take long. So part 4, continue watching after you develop the unit circle.